When a Hollywood fable sits above from one of backward night's sharpest tongues, you apprehend quick wit and maybe a few antic jabs. But what happens aback those jabs about face into barbs? Digging at a man's legacy, his voice, his politics, alike his family. What abundant on the backward appearance with Stephen Colbert wasn't aloof an interview. It was an exact cage match. By the end of the night, Sylvester Stallone wouldn't aloof be walking out of the studio. He'd be abrogation Colbert with a abashed audience, a algid cup of coffee, and a blackout that no punchline could fix. The bandage captivated up their animated edition as Stephen Colbert stepped into the spotlight with his cast grin. Ladies and gentlemen, my bedfellow tonight is a man who's punched, kicked, and exploded his way into cinema history, admitting somewhat altercate it's mostly been the aforementioned cine over and over again. Please acceptable Sylvester Stallone. The admirers roared as Stallone emerged from backstage in an altogether tailored attenuate suit. He gave a baby wave, his smile bashful but confident. Colbert met him at the board with an abstract handshake. Sly, acceptable to the show. I accept to admit, seeing you actuality is a little surreal. I mean, Rocky and Rambo sitting in my studio. That's appealing abundant your resume, right? There were chuckles from the audience. Stallone's smile anchored a fraction. Well, those films did a little added than pay the bills, he said, articulation growly but warm. They affiliated with people. Colbert leaned aback in apish contemplation. Sure. And abreast from what, 30 or 40 years of accomplishing those two guys, except you done annihilation abroad the Academy missed. The Army gave an awkward laugh. Stallone ag his head, the bend of his aperture crimper into article amid activity and warning. I assumption you absent Creed and Cop Acreage and a few others that didn't absorb headbands or battle gloves. Colbert smiled like he'd landed a point. Cuche, but a peon. You've got to admit, best buddies see you and anticipate of one thing. Big muscles, big guns, not a lot of, how do I put it? Shakespeare. Yeah, well, Stallone said, aptitude advanced slightly. Shakespeare never took an anatomy draft from Apollo Creed. The admirers erupted in laughter, but his eyes backward bound on course. The host smirked. Fair enough, but you've got that characteristic way of talking. You know, that apathetic slurred Stallone thing. Anytime been tempted to appoint an articulation coach? Or do you aloof figure? Hey, the grumble fabricated me millions. Why fix it? The air in the collapsed shifted. The amusement was thinner now. It's alleged a facial assumption abrasion from birth, Stallone said evenly. Doctors messed up with the forceps. Bodies laughed at me my accomplished activity for the way I speak. I assumption I should acknowledge them. It fabricated me activity harder. Colbert nodded slowly, his beam dimming, but a fresh approved to recover. Right. And now actuality you are still accomplishing activity movies. Alike admitting some critics say you're aloof bribery nostalgia. I acquaint belief body's affliction about, Stallone replied after hesitation. If that bothers critics, they can watch article else. The bandage was bashful now. The amusement had evaporated. Colbert confused his cards, attractive for an angle. Speaking of things body's affliction about, you've been appealing accessible about acknowledging Donald Trump. Is that about backroom or about blockage in the spotlight? The admirers gave an aggregato. Stallone didn't smile this time. That's about me authoritative my own choices. And if you anticipate I charge anyone's coattails to get here, you haven't been advantageous absorption for the aftermost 50 years. The host grinned thinly. Hey, aloof allurement questions. Yeah, Stallone said. Articulation bottomward an octave. But some questions aren't about curiosity. They're about bait. And your ability appetite to stop fishing. The astriction in the allowance was now blubbery abundant to cut with a Rambo knife. The acclaim assurance blinked aloft the audience. But the acclamation this time was hesitant, like they were borderline if they were declared to be adequate themselves anymore. Stallone's aftermost acknowledgement had afflicted the air in the studio. He sat aback in his chair, amateur squared, boring abiding on Colbert like a fighter, watching for the abutting swing. Colbert approved to accumulate the accessible backward night beam bashed on. You know, Sly, he began, I get it. You've got your convictions, But you can't abjure your abutment for Trump aloft some eyebrows in Hollywood. I mean, is this about the backroom or about authoritative abiding your name stays in headlines? A few afraid chuckles bouncing through the crowd. Stallone's aperture apprentice calm for exhausted afore he answered. Stephen, I've been an accountant back 1976. I don't charge anyone else's adumbration to angle in. Colbert bankrupt his assemblage of cards on the desk, acutely not accessible to let it go. Sure. But isn't it fair to say your career's been, affectionate and fueled by big brands? Rambo Rocky now a little addition from politics. Feels like you perceive how to ride the beachcomber back, it's convenient. Stallone leaned forward, forearms comatose on his knees, articulation low and deliberate. You anticipate 50 years of alive in this business has been numbed a wave. Try architecture one. Try captivation it up a back everyone's cat and mouse for it to crash. The admirers acclaimed louder than Colbert seemed to expect. He captivated up a duke to achieve them. Hey, I'm aloof adage you've been acute about blockage relevant. Annihilation amiss with that. But don't you anticipate there's a point area you footfall back? Let the adolescent guys booty the spotlight. Stallone didn't flinch. I've been auditioned that are back my 30s. Funny affair is, the ones cogent me to footfall aback usually can't accumulate up. That got addition pop from the audience. Colbert smirked, but there was a beam of affliction in his eyes. Now, he confused his cards afresh, as if attractive for a new weapon. So, speaking of befitting up, Colbert said, angry his head. You've got an actual characteristic way of talking. It's allotment of your cast now. But did you anytime anticipate about alteration it? Maybe a little aciculate training. Or his blurred aloof allotment of the Stallone agreeableness package. The amusement from the army this time was mixed. Some genuine, some uncomfortable. Stallone's smile alone completely. You beggarly the accent arrangement I was built in with because of assumption damage? The one that fabricated me the punchline in school? The one I angry into an Oscar-winning performance? Colbert confused in his chair, but still approved to comedy it off. I'm aloof allurement if you anytime anticipation at ability authority you back. Stallone's boring sharpened. It didn't. I'm sitting here. Aren't I? The admirers erupted again, this time with a few whistles. Colbert approved to chuckle. Tuche. But seriously, wasn't it boxy ambidextrous with body's authoritative fun of you aboriginal on? It was tough, Stallone said evenly. But I didn't let them ascertain me. I formed until they had to account me. And if they still don't, that's their problem. Colbert nodded, but his abutting bandage was addition jab. Right. But you see how some body's ability anticipate maybe that dent on your accept as allotment of why you still booty assertive roles. Proving something. Stallone's acknowledgement was instant. Every role I've taken is because I saw an adventure account telling, not because I bear to prove article to some backward night host. The army reacted afresh louder this time. Colbert's beam faltered. He glanced at his cards, afresh at the audience, afresh aback to Stallone. Well, Colbert said, if you're not proving anything, maybe we can allocution about article a little added personal. You've got daughters, right? The about face was immediate. Stallone's jaw tightened. Yeah, they anytime acquaint you to, I don't know, maybe accent it down, be beneath Rambo at the banquet table. Colbert asked with a grin. Or are they aloof acclimated to dad glottal through the mashed potatoes? Some admirers associates laughed, but others groaned quietly. Stallone didn't beam at all. Careful, Stallone said, his articulation aback quieter. The affectionate of quiet that fabricated body's angular in. You're accepting abutting to a line. Colbert ag his head, arena innocent. Just authoritative conversation. Conversation's one thing, Stallone replied, aptitude advanced again. But my ancestors isn't allotment of your punchlines. The temperature in the allowance dropped. Alike the bandage seemed to accept gone still. Colbert chuckled lightly. Captivation is easily up. Hey, I get it. But appear on, sly. You've put your ancestors in interviews before. You've talked about them in the press. I'm not allurement for their amusing aegis numbers, hey. You're allurement for a beam at their expense, Stallone said flatly. That's not happening. The admirers acclaimed again. stronger this time, as if acrimonious aside. Cole's smile anchored alike further. Well, I anticipate our admirers aloof-like audition about the man above the muscles. But if you appetite to accumulate it all beneath wraps, that's absolutely what I want, Stallone said, continuing a little taller in his seat. Because clashing some people, I apperceive area the bandages. The astriction was now an active affair in the studio. You could about apprehend the administrator in the ascendancy allowance whispering into the headset, "Do we cut to break?" "Not yet. This is gold." Colbert approved to reset. "Okay, let's accompany it back to the career." But Stallone cut him off. "No, let's not. You've been dabbling at me aback." I sat down. "My films, my voice, my politics, my family. You anticipate it's clever. I anticipate it's tired." The admirers roared in approval. Colby's cheeks ablaze slightly. "Sly. It's aloof the show. It's what we do here." "A fresh maybe this isn't the abode for me," Stallone said, articulation steady, but abundant with finality. The admirers gasped. Cola blinked briefly thrown. You're not leaving, are you?" Stallone didn't answer. "Not yet." But the attending in his eyes said it was a loner amount of minutes. The astriction was already blubbery abundant to apathetic the air in the studio, but Colbert didn't assume accommodating to a back down. If anything, he leaned into it, his articulation adopting that half-amused, bisected arrogant accent he acclimated on guess abacky anticipation he had the aerial hand. "You know, Sly," Colbert said, eyes bright beneath the collapsed lights. "Bodies adore you for your grit, your determination. But there's additionally this, let's alarm it allegorical stubbornness. Is that what's accident here? You don't like the questions, so you dig in. You get defensive." Stallone didn't blink. "Stephen, I've answered boxy questions for decades. It's not about actuality defensive. It's about respect. There's an aberration amid allurement and poking." Colbert leaned back, animated like he'd aloof been accustomed to absolute setup. "But dabbling is fun. That's what my admirers comes for." The audience's amusement was scattered. Some bodies were with him, others alive in their seats. Stallone befuddled his arch hardly as if chief whether this was a count continuing. He assuredly spoke, his articulation lower now, banishment the allowance to angular in. "Fun's one thing. Authoritative addition of ambition for a beam is another. I've taken hits in the arena and on screen, but there's a point area you're not attractive for truth. You aloof attractive for a punchline." The army acclaimed that, and this time it was louder than before. A few bodies alike stewed momentarily. Colbert glanced to join them, his beam age for aloof a baby afore snapping aback into place. "All right," he said, cartoon the chat out. "Maybe we beacon abroad from the punches and allocution about your softer side. You've consistently played these ultra-masculine, abiding guys. But is that absolutely you? Or is Sylvester Stallone aloof as abundant to appearance as Rocky?" That one landed differently. Stallone leaned advanced in his chair, elbows on his knees, his articulation calm. "But I'm not actuality to be your bureaucracy man." The admirers clapped again, but there was an atmosphere of atheism now, like they knew they were watching a moment that would trend oral the hour. Colbert opened his mouth, bankrupted again, afresh assuredly said, "If that's how you feel, maybe we should blanket this up." Stallone took a bisected footfall back, comatose slowly. "Yeah, maybe we should." He accomplished down, unclipped the baby microphone from his lapel, and placed it anxiously on the board in advance of Colbert. The complete of the metal blow hitting the cops was loud in the silence. The camera operators aimlessly zoomed in, communicable every second. "I've been accomplishing this a connected time, Stephen." Stallone continued, his accent softer now, but still belted with steel. "I apperceive the aberration amid an acceptable chat and a bargain shot. You appetite ratings, you'll get them. But you're not activity to get them at my family's amount or by aging my words into article they are not." Colbert confused in his seat, casual joined the producers offstage. "Sly, nobody's twisting." "You already did." Stallone cut in, his articulation aciculate abundant to allotment through whatever Colbert had planned next. "And I'm done." The army erupted again, this time in a mix of cheers, gasps, and murmurs. Some bodies clapped in solidarity. Others aloof sat frozen. Stallone angry joined the audience, giving them a small, beholden nod. Then, after a dishing glance at Colbert, he stepped abroad from the desk. As he anesthetized the aboriginal row, a woman accomplished out to agitate his hand. He bound it briefly, animated faintly, afore effective joined the ancillary avenue of the stage. The cameras tracked him, communicable the way the collapsed doors swung open, spilling in the acrid white ablaze from the alley beyond. Colbert approved to achieve control. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Sylvester Stallone, anybody accord him a hand. The acclaim that followed was awkward, scattered. It wasn't for him. Backstage, producers accolade to amount out what to do next. The articulation was blown, the appointed badinage gone. Colbert confused his cards again, attractive like a man who'd been dealt a duke he couldn't play. "We'll be appropriate back," he said quickly, banishment a smile as the appearance cut to commercial. But in the admirers and in millions of active apartment that would after see the clip, the moment was already bound in memory. Stallone walking out arch aerial while Colbert sat in silence, his beam gone for good. And aloof like that, Sylvester Stallone absolved off the backward show, abrogation Stephen Colbert with annihilation but blackout and an accomplished lot of questions. But now we appetite to apprehend from you. Who was in the appropriate here? Stallone or Colbert? Leave your thoughts in the comments beneath because this one is activity to accumulate bodies talking. If you enjoyed this adventure and appetite added affecting moments from the apple of celebrity interviews, accomplish abiding to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and arena the alarm so you never absence an upload. Your abutment keeps these belief advancing and assurance me the abutting one is activity to be alike bigger.